2 points at 74.93. The pound buys $1.25 and a euro 11. LBC weather, showers easing to leave a largely dry and clear night ahead for most, except for the far northwest of England and into Scotland, a low of 9. Tomorrow, more heavy rain and stronger winds, the risk of thunder too across southern England, a high of 22 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. I want to talk about trust. You see, when prime ministers, politicians tell you they're prepared to countenance or even deliver Brexit with no deal, do they actually mean it? Well, one thing that is pretty clear is that Parliament, our current Parliament, will do their damnedest to stop anybody from doing it, because today there has been a vote in the House of Commons about whether the incoming Prime Minister, which we suspect is going to be Boris Johnson, should be able to prorogue Parliament. And it has led to a pretty big rebellion in the Conservative Party. And joining me to talk about this is LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood. Good evening, Theo.
Good evening, Nigel.
So rebellion's in the air.
It was a big rebellion in the House of Commons from the Conservative Party Remain faction this afternoon. To give you the context, Boris Johnson has refused to rule out, and we're taking this that he is going to be the next Prime Minister, proroguing or suspending Parliament in the last 2 weeks of October in order to prevent MPs from blocking a no-deal Brexit. The talk is that that's exactly what he's going to do in the week commencing October the 14th. We leave on the 31st, and then he will try and come back and pass a Queen's speech in the week commencing November the 4th. And of course, if he can't do that, then he will go to the country in a general election. And so what Alistair Burt, the former Conservative minister, did along with Hilary Benn, is they tabled an amendment to a fairly innocuous piece of legislation, the Northern Ireland Bill, which is just designed to tide over governance in Northern Ireland until a power sharing agreement can be restored. But the amendment isn't innocuous. What the amendment does is it requires a minister of the government to come to the House of Commons for 5 consecutive days in October and update MPs about exactly how the progress of restoring that power sharing agreement in Northern Ireland is going. And of course, while ministers might be updating MPs about how that power sharing agreement is going, MPs will have the chance to pass a motion or pass legislation preventing the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, from taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union without
so it's a
deal.
sort of ingenious wrecking amendment, yeah?
Exactly. It's guerrilla warfare. Now, 30 Conservative MPs abstained in that vote, including 4 cabinet ministers, Chancellor Philip Hammond, David Gauke, Rory Stewart, all amongst them. And then we had 17 rebels. So you ended up with a result. It was actually a resounding victory for the Remainers. 315 played 274. And Boris Johnson's chances of, and it's not, we shouldn't say this, it's not over, but Boris Johnson's chances of proroguing Parliament now look much less likely than they did 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually strictly legally binding, but I guess in effect it shows that Parliament will do its damnedest to make sure he does not prorogue Parliament.
Absolutely. And of course, MPs, Alistair Burt, Dominic Grieve have all come out and said, along with the Chancellor Philip Hammond, that they're going to do their utmost to make sure that we do not leave the European Union without a deal. And so ultimately, the position we're going to be left in, if Boris Johnson is going to keep to his promise of taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union on October the 31st, and the European Union isn't prepared to drop the Northern Irish backstop, the only place we can land is with a general election.
Yeah, that's how it's beginning to feel to me as well. Theo, thank you very much indeed. Well, that's happened today, but something else has happened today that I think is even more dramatic. Do you remember Mrs. May, our Prime Minister, when she stood up at Lancaster House and she said very clearly, no deal is better than a bad deal. And then, of course, she called a general election. And she told us no deal is better than a bad deal. And she became the Prime Minister again on the basis that was part of her negotiating strategy. And right in to 2018, she kept telling us, let's listen to her.
While both sides want a deal, we have to face up to the fact that, despite the progress we have made, there are two big issues where we remain a long way apart. And I have always said, no deal is better than a bad deal.
So there you are. No deal is better than a bad deal. That is what the vicar's daughter told us. And yet, in a dramatic documentary to be screened tonight, when Nick Robinson interviewed Michel Barnier, this is what he said. Listen carefully.
We have put in the document with the UK, not against the UK, with the UK, the legal answers to each and every point of uncertainty created by the Brexit. That is the point. That is why this document is the only way to leave the EU in an orderly manner.
And if we just left, if we just tore up the membership card?
The UK will have to face the consequences.
Did Theresa May, as Prime Minister, ever say directly to you or her ministers, we may go for no deal?
No, I never listened such a sentence. Never.
Never threatened it?
Never.
Now, you know, I know Michel Barnier pretty well. I've been in those European institutions for years. As you know, he's somebody that I've sat next to, debated with. I've been and sat with him in his office. I meet him in the coffee room. He is always unfailingly courteous and polite with me. I don't agree at all with his vision of a centralised Europe run by bureaucrats like him. But do you know something? I really have never heard anybody in Brussels in all that time say that he was dishonest. In fact, quite the opposite. You know, he says what he thinks. He's a good negotiator. And it really makes me think. Mrs May telling us no deal's better than a bad deal. Him telling us she never even raised the prospect. Well, if Barnier is right, then Mrs May has lied to the British people and betrayed Brexit voters. And it gets, doesn't it, to the issue of trust in politics. Do you believe our leaders when they tell us that they're going to deliver a no-deal Brexit if they have to? And if you do believe them, and if you think, yep, Boris, absolutely no question, he's going to do it, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think you don't believe a word any of them say anymore, in which case text to 84850 and tell me, what chance do you think there is now of leaving with no deal on the 31st of October? And please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course on Twitter, Facebook, and indeed YouTube. You can watch us and you can comment as well. Jim from Nuneaton. I mean, was Mrs May, has she just completely had us over, Jim?
Yes, of course she has, yeah. Most of the Tory party and most of the people in Parliament don't want to leave. They didn't want the people to vote to leave, and they're trying to screw us. They thought they'd have done it before now with all the lies and with all the cheating and with all the threats. But we just want our nation back. I think Boris Johnson may have been trying to get us out, but I think he's the sort of person that will buckle and try to water Brexit down. And therefore, he's not that trustworthy, is he?
Well, Jim, I don't know. I mean, we're about to find out, aren't we? I mean, assuming that he gets anointed next week, he will have exactly 100 days in the run-up to the 31st of October. So we're going to find out, Jim, pretty quickly whether Boris is serious. And I actually think we'll find out within the first 2 or 3 days, Jim, by who he appoints. Who does he appoint as Chancellor? Who does he appoint as Brexit Secretary? You know, so I think we'll know pretty early on how determined he is. But you think he'll buckle?
I think he'll buckle, yeah. And I think there's no way that he'll get it through Parliament in the way that it is. We need a general election. And we need all of the people to find out who voted today to stop Farage. They need to go to their MPs, all the Brexiters, and tell them they won't be voting for him again.
Well, that ultimately, Jim, is the power that the public do have. But if
That's
Boris...
Right. And they want to use that power. We want to get rid of this load of... Remain. I mean, I'm so angry with them. They've had us over for years. They did it to our parents. They're doing it to us.
Jim, you know, if Boris doesn't deliver, that would be 2 prime ministers in a row who told us they'd deliver it and not. And I think you're right. confidence in politics and politicians is at an all-time low. Jim, thank you. Jim there, spitting tacks in Nuneaton. How does Simon from Harwich feel about this? Good evening, Simon.
Hello, sir. I haven't spoken in about 6 months, but I hope you're fine and well, Nigel.
I remember you. You're the Labour guy from Essex, that's right.
Yes. Not a Labour politician anymore, unfortunately. I lost my seat, but I'm still a trade unionist, and I still believe in leaving the EU.
So you lost your seat on the district council, yeah?
Well, the local council, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
But there you go.
It's a rough old game, Simon. It really is.
It is. But I'm very frustrated and very hurt, especially by today's announcement that they are frustrating. There are elements, powerful forces behind frustrating.
Yes. So you've got frustration going on. You've got all these tricks in Parliament, Simon, but don't you think that what Monsieur Barnier says about Mrs May is pretty devastating?
I think so. I think so. It's not going to help. It's not going to help. And I think with the best will in the world, I think Boris will become PM. Will he try to prorogue Parliament and that? I don't know. It seems to be even harder, especially after today's vote. And Labour, my own people, I don't know what's happening. What way are they going? Left or right? Right or
remain,
left?
remain.
I don't know.
Remain all the way, Simon. I mean, second referendum. I mean, that's where the Labour Party's gone, isn't it?
I'm not happy with that, personally. I'm not happy with that. But what else is there for us, though? There is going to be a sizable minority that voted to leave in the Labour Party, and we're being treated like what?
Yeah, I know, and they seem to be, the sort of North London-dominated Labour Party are ignoring that. Simon, when a Prime Minister or a political leader tells you they're going to deliver a no-deal Brexit, do you look them in the eye and believe them?
Not the current ones we've had, no.
No, well, I think a lot of people feel. Simon, thank you. Commiserations about losing your local council seat. And I have to say, I can't believe that she could have had the front to go on telling us again and again and again that no deal's better than a bad deal, and yet never to have put that on the table to Monsieur Barnier. We were flying the white flag of surrender before the negotiations even began. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs have supported an amendment that now makes it more difficult for the next Prime Minister to suspend Parliament in order to push through a no-deal Brexit. Police have confirmed a 14-year-old boy has died after collapsing at an assault course in Surrey. A man's been found guilty of murdering his best friend's 13-year-old stepdaughter to stop her revealing his year-long abuse. LBC weather, showers easing to leave a largely dry night ahead for most, except for the far northwest, a low of 9 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Anne-Marie Walsh on the M25 clockwise. The Holmesdale Tunnel is now blocked between junction 25 for Enfield and 26 Waltham Abbey. That's following an accident in Greenwich at the Blackwall Tunnel northbound. There's been a breakdown inside the tunnel, so a lane is blocked there at the moment. And on the trains, Greater Anglia have delays of up to 45 minutes between Shenfield and Liverpool Street, with severe delays on TfL Rail because of an investigation. And on the tube, severe delays on the Piccadilly line. That's between Acton Town and Heathrow.
This is LBC.
Food freedom isn't just about getting excited because your favourite Chinese just arrived. It's about letting out your excitement noise when the doorbell goes and doing that sort of halfway between a walk and a run to the door that only really happens when your favourite Chinese just arrived. Fire up the Deliveroo app and find your food freedom today. Oh, bliss.
This is LBC.
I have made a will, and no, we haven't talked about it openly, but it does need talking about. Trouble is, I'm up north and Mandy's down south, and when I see her, we tend to do family things and go out with the children, and then all of a sudden I'm going home again. I think, haven't talked about that. Next time.
I don't know why she's not talking about it.
Well,
it isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £775 in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
The perfect day. Very rarely we're lucky enough to enjoy it. When everything seems to be going just right. Like when you beat the queue for your morning bacon butty. Your lunchtime banter goes viral, and then to top it off, the delivery for your latest project actually arrives on time. It's just like when you're driving the new Ford Ranger. Available with a 1-ton load capacity, 2-litre bi-turbo EcoBlue engine, and selectable driving modes. You'll let nothing stand in your way. Not even the Great British Summer. Discover more. Search New Ford Ranger. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain.
Clearance at John Lewis & Partners is now on. There are thousands of great offers across all your favourite brands, from kitchen and homeware to fashion and beauty, as well as expert advice from our partners and a minimum 2-year guarantee on all our electricals. More of what you love for less. Clearance. Ends Sunday.
Renewing your tax credits is too important to forget, so here's an unforgettable reminder.
Don't forget to renew your tax credits. It's very, very, very important.
Renew your tax credits by the 31st of July, or your payments will stop. Go to gov.uk/manage your tax credits today.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Theresa May told us again and again, no deal is better than a bad deal, and we will leave on the 29th of March, and idiots like me actually believed her. But of course, she never really meant it, because I believe Monsieur Barnier when he says that neither she or any of her team seriously put leaving with no deal on the table in Brussels. My faith in her was shot a long time ago, but now Boris Johnson is saying no deal is better than a bad deal. Is he like Mrs May, doing it just to get votes? Does he actually believe it? Do we believe any of them? And on Twitter, good night, Mr Bond says, our MPs have made our negotiating position much weaker today. Shame on them. Well, you see, unless the other side think you are prepared to walk away, why should they offer us any concessions to that new treaty at all? Marion is not holding her breath. She's ashamed to admit that she believed in Theresa May. No chance of Boris getting us out now. Well, Marion, I've been on a very similar journey. Paul from Leeds says these so-called Tory rebels have today destroyed their party. They'll be annihilated at the election. And Sally on YouTube says, I don't think Boris will deliver. Neither will Hunt. Boris has a better chance of getting us out, but still, the probability of us being out by Halloween is unfeasibly small. And if you think about that, Sally, that would be 2 massive broken promises in one calendar year. Graham is a new caller from Warrington. Graham, do you believe our leaders when they tell us they'll leave with no deal?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
My frustration is that I believe that probably in his heart Boris Johnson thinks that he can get us out with no deal or some other kind of deal. But as far as I can see, the EU has plainly said there will be no other deal, and that really only leaves us with one option. When virtually all of Parliament are saying they want to keep us in, they're all Remainers, how is it that one man can have the power to take us out? For me, it requires somebody else who has greater powers. I don't know who that might be, the Queen, maybe you could advise me on that, whether she could affect this. But what I don't understand is we've got people like Gina Miller, Tony Blair and John Major. Surely these are just ordinary people, just like you and I and every one of your listeners. I don't understand how they can affect these decisions. And another thing that frustrates me is...
Well, Graham, because when Tony Blair speaks, the press covers it. I mean, he was, a long-standing Prime Minister who won 3 general elections. I mean, he's not just an ordinary... He is, whichever way you cut it, he's not just an ordinary citizen, is he?
Well, is he not just a member of public? I mean, he holds no power in office anymore, does he?
Graham, come on, be realistic. He may not now hold any position of necessary direct
power.
But
what I'm saying is his voice should carry no more weight than anyone else's, in my opinion. He's left his job That's like if I leave a job, I should have no more say in how that business is being run.
Well, Graham, look, as you do articulate, we have former Prime Ministers lining up in a queue to tell us we've made a terrible mistake, we must vote again and remain. And we've got all these things going on. But Boris is standing up and saying, just as Mrs May did, I will take you out on the set date. Do you believe him, Graham? Does he believe in it?
I don't believe him, no. I don't believe any of them, is quite simply. I think the entire country more or less wants leave. I think the numbers now are far greater than the 52-48. And all of this fear-mongering, all this business and all this money and jobs will be lost. One thing I'd like to just remind people who are in business is that business is not guaranteed and jobs are not guaranteed. If you stagnate in business, you lose and you die. This idea that that businesses won't evolve or won't,
of course,
it's ridiculous.
Businesses adapt to circumstances, Graham. Of course they do. Graham, I'm sorry you're saying so down about things, but I'm not surprised. Thank you for your call. Millions like Graham out there. Pat in Brentwood asks me, Nigel, if the EU refuses to give us a deal, what are we supposed to do? Pat, leave with no deal. And the deal they've offered us, or the deal that was cooked up between Ollie Robbins and Michel Barnier, is a new, legally binding international treaty, which in many ways is worse than staying a member of the Union. Anyway, Peter says, I really would love to believe that we could get taken out with no deal, but alas, I have my doubts. Nigel, I don't believe, says Paul. This Tory government will bring us out of the EU with no deal. So I'll be voting for Labour when the next election comes around. Well, you've been certain of one thing, Paul. They certainly won't take you out on WTO terms. In fact, they'll probably make you vote again. Darren is calling from Woking. Good evening, Darren.
Evening, Nigel. I spoke to you a few months ago. I was at the last husting last night and asked Boris Johnson a question regarding whether he would be prepared to look at a coupon election with the Brexit Party, and he ruled that out. But the reason why I asked that is because I don't think he will deliver a no-deal Brexit. I think we're actually, as a Brexiteer, I'm worried that by having someone like Boris Johnson, that if he doesn't deliver Brexit, what the Remainers will say, and arguably so, they'll say that, we had a Brexiteer at the very top, levers of power, hasn't managed to deliver.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Let's stay.
And it's not true. Now, strangely enough, I joined the Conservatives about a year ago, solely so that I could have an influence on the leadership election. I still haven't completed my ballot paper, which should have been sent today, but I think I'll get away with sending it tomorrow. And I have to say, I'm slightly leaning more towards Hunt because...
Are you really?
I'll tell you why, Nigel, right? Boris Johnson, I think, has too much faith in himself. What I think he believes in is that he can garner enough support to deliver what he'll call Brexit, but what you and I would call Brino. Whereas I think Jeremy Hunt has come round to understanding that, with hindsight, Brexit must be delivered. And he made a great quote, stole a quote from someone about, not going where paths have been trodden, but actually, create your own path effectively. And I can't remember, unfortunately, the person who said it originally. But I just think his ideas and visions were actually a bit more sincere and future-proof, whereas...
What did you make, Darren? What did you make of Boris holding up the kipper in that plastic insulation?
Well, the audience lapped it up and loved it. I mean, I missed the photo opportunity. I mean, my gut reaction was, I need a picture of this. This is going to be used against him for years. I just thought it was hideous, really. There was an underlying point, but he just, as always, delivers the humour and not the substance, and I think that's a problem. So
avid Brexiteer, Darren from Woking is going to vote for Jeremy Hunt. Well, there we are. Interesting. And do you trust Hunt to deliver? Do you really trust him to deliver?
In all honesty, no. Nigel, I've applied to be a candidate for the Brexit Party as an MP. I'm waiting to hear back. And,
so you're a member of the Tory Party, applying for the Brexit Party.
I believe the people that can deliver Brexit are the Brexit Party. And one other thing, can I just mention? Everyone says that do we want no deal? Well, none of us really want no deal, if we're honest. And, you've alluded to it. You talk about that we need a no deal now because of where we're at.
Because, Darren, I campaigned for 25 years for a simple free trade agreement. The trouble is, this woman, who's our Prime Minister, never asked for it. And we're left in a mess. And the only way we can deliver on the 31st of October is to go for no deal. It's the only way, and right now, Darren, I would say no deal is the best deal by far.
Yeah, I agree because of where we're at, and ultimately, if we don't have a clean break Brexit, this is going to rumble and rumble on.
For years.
And actually, what's more damaging to our economy more than anything at the moment is the lack of certainty. And I genuinely believe that an answer to the Brexit question, in whatever form, actually will create a bit of a uplift within the economy.
Let's just do it and get on with the rest of our lives. Darren, fascinating call. Thank you very much indeed. Tom's a new caller from Uxbridge. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Nigel.
Do you believe politicians when they make big promises, Tom?
No, I don't believe them sometimes.
Because
you're the reason why.
Because your MP, I am guessing, is one Boris Johnson.
It is Boris Johnson. You're correct there. And Boris Johnson, when he came to his first election, he promised to stop HS2 and Heathrow. On his second election, he promised again to stop HS2 and Heathrow. Then I was reading my local gazettes, and Boris Johnson and Ray Padderfoot, leader of the London Borough of Hillingdon Council, were shaking hands with a man from HS2 over the Colne Valley Viaduct going over the two lakes in Harefield and the relocation of the Hillingdon Outdoor Centre, Activity Centre, and the package that HS2 is proposing to give to London Borough of Hillingdon on completion of the viaducts. And Boris Johnson signed that contract with Paddyfoot and HS2 for the viaduct. So I don't trust him one bit. And if the HS2 goes through, this country is in for a shock. I tell you why. When David Cameron said taxpayers' money, investors' money will be at HS2, he didn't tell the country that the taxpayers' money is going to pay for HS2, the investors' money is going to go into the construction companies building it, meaning the shareholders get a dividend of the taxpayers' money.
Tom, you know...
No, I'm going to come to the point in a minute, okay? Now, that means if he's in Prime Minister and he goes ahead with HS2, this country is to a lot of debt of subsidising HS2. Can you trust a man that when he's asked on television about HS2, he gives no comment? And the reason why he gave no comment is because he knows he signed that deal with HS2 and Ray Paddyfoot.
Right, well, if he's... Well, certainly, I know more about him on Heathrow, where he's flipped and flopped all over the place. But, Tom, and we're running out of time, you get a quick one-word answer from you. But when he says he's going to deliver a no-deal Brexit, surely then you believe him?
Well, I would like to believe him to get a no-deal Brexit because we got our fishing borders back and we might even get our milk franchise back, which we had to give to the Irish, where our dairy farmers had to pour their milk.
But he's not going to do it, Tom, is he? He's not going to do it. You don't believe in him, do you?
Well, no, I don't, but I do believe in the Brexit Party. I believe in you.
Thank you.
That's why I left Labour Party when Blair was in and they asked £200 million for the coal mines and Blair gave it to him. Blair brought in the cutbacks on the dental, which affected me in a great way.
Tom, we're out of time. Too many subjects, but on HS2, by the way, I am with you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
17 Tory rebels have defied the government whip and backed a move which makes it harder now for the next Prime Minister to bypass the Commons and force through a no-deal Brexit. The Commons backed the move by 315 votes to 274, which could stop Theresa May's successor from suspending Parliament in order to allow the UK to crash out of the EU. A 14-year-old boy died after collapsing at an assault course in Surrey. Police are treating it as unexplained, but say at this stage it's not thought to involve anyone else. A 25-year-old man's been found guilty of the rape and murder of a teenage girl to stop her revealing his year-long abuse of her. Care worker Stephen Nicholson stabbed Lucy McHugh in Woodland behind a leisure centre in Southampton in July last year. LBC weather, showers easing to leave a largely dry and clear night ahead for most, except for the far northwest, a low of 9 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Now the suggestion that obesity could be seen and indeed classed as a disease. John Wilding is Professor of Medicine, the Institute of Aging and Chronic Disease at the University of Liverpool. Is obesity the patient's fault?
Absolutely not.
Really? 10 obese people present themselves to you, and if those 10 then really cut down on what they ate and drank and took some exercise, you're not telling me the majority of them would lose weight?
If you can successfully do that, then of course you will lose weight. A massive increase in obesity, and that's because the environment is very permissive.
Could we try it my way, where actually doctors say, do you know what, Mr. Ferrari? You know you're fat, we need to get 20 pounds off, or you can die. It's really up to you.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
I'm not the most natural of dancers, as anybody who see me at a wedding would probably testify, but I'll give it a go. And now Tesco are bringing the nation together with Dance Beats, an amazing dance marathon raising money for some brilliant charities.
July 18th to the 20th, get involved with Dance Beats and raise money for Cancer Research UK, the British Heart Foundation and Diabetes UK. It's your chance to step up, shake it down and move your feet to help beat cancer, beat heart diseases and fight diabetes. Whether you dance at home or at your local Tesco store, get involved. Search Tesco Dance Beats to find out more. LBC supports this message.
Being born in the USA and marrying a Galway girl may not necessarily make you walk 500 miles to a Norwegian wood like an Egyptian to bless the rains down in Africa. But if we are as open-minded, open to the world, open to new ideas as we are to music, we can all dance as part of something far, far bigger. Because we are not an island. HSBC UK. Together we thrive. And this is the end of the ad as we know it.
There are few greater joys in life than a sumptuous hot bath. Time to let the stresses of the day just melt away. Unless your plumbing goes. That's a recipe for a meltdown. But Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So if you need a plumber or other professionals in their trade, just relax. Trusted Trader are only a click away.
Thomas Edison. He's months away from lighting up the world.
The man who controls electricity.
Westinghouse is placing a bid.
Edison Electric, it has to be. Can change the whole world.
Automation, transportation, communication, the future.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Vultures in every venture. Gotta keep them away.
Michael Shannon.
I have the better system.
Nicholas Hoult.
Nikola Tesla. I fix problems for idiots.
There's never gonna be anything named Tesla again. And Tom Holland.
His current kills people.
Only because you said it would.
Current War in cinemas July 26.
The world's biggest tent has an entire mini golf course inside. Think that's big? This Friday, the Euro Millions jackpot is a humongous £96 million, plus 20 UK millionaires guaranteed. Now that's big.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
If you lost money on an investment sold by a bank, find out how much you could be owed in compensation. Text GOOD to 60777 and Goodwin Barrett will call you back.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, where trust is concerned, it is quite a day today, really, as nearly 50 Tory MPs rebel and back an amendment that basically does its utmost to stop the next Prime Minister from proroguing Parliament, from suspending Parliament, so that we would just leave, take the default position with no deal on the 31st of October. Added to which, Michel Barnier has said that at no point did Mrs May, despite her public protestations, ever try to go for no deal. And we've talked, if Boris wins, do we believe him when he says he'll deliver no deal? Well, I think most of you are struggling to believe in him. Some of you do believe in him. The caller before the break talked about HS2 and whether Boris had or had not signed various contracts. And I think, just to make it clear, I don't think as a local MP for Uxbridge he would have been involved in any of that. So let's just wipe that to one side. But Boris has flipped and flopped on Heathrow, on HS2. He knew at the start of this, particularly in the wake of the European election result, that if he went clearly saying he'd deliver a no-deal Brexit if he had to on the 31st of October, he'd win the contest. Does he mean it? Another politician who will not be there this time next week, because by this time next week we will have a new PM, is the current Chancellor, Philip Hammond, Spreadsheet Phil, Ehor, he who perpetually spreads misery. And he's given us a parting gift, because he'll be gone this time next week. The Office of Budget Responsibility tells us that a no-deal Brexit will lead to a year-long recession that will wipe 2% off the nation's GDP by the end of 2020. Couple of points on that. Number one, of course, the OBR is funded by the Treasury, who've done their utmost to be gloomy about Brexit from day one. The next point is that much of this evidence was based on forecasts from the International Monetary Fund, who've spent nearly all their money in the last few years bailing out the euro and are overtly political. And, you know, all this economic modelling, it assumes that with a no-deal Brexit, tariffs go up on goods to and from Europe and that nothing else changes across the world, which, of course, is ludicrous because we'd be free to reduce other tariffs. I would take all of that very seriously with a pinch of salt. I really would. Trust. Mary in Holloway says, I trust Boris more than Hunt. Well, that's fine, Mary. Not everybody does. Richard in Chelsea says, MPs said they would honour the result. An MP's word of honour is worthless. And I think we are seeing more and more of that. Mike in Denham's got some advice. If I was Boris, I would call an election next week when he takes over. Mike, they've hardly selected any candidates yet and they haven't got any money. He will not be calling an immediate election. I really don't believe so. Let's go to Ilkley and speak to Claire. Claire, do you trust our leaders when they tell us they'll deliver, for example, a no-deal Brexit?
No, I don't trust any of them.
Don't you? What about Boris?
No, I still don't trust him. I wouldn't trust any of them.
Right. So how long have you felt like this, Claire? I sound like a counsellor here, don't I? But I mean, you know, when did this sort of bond of trust between you and the great and the good that govern us, when did it start to break?
I think when it was obvious that Theresa May just didn't want, you know, she wasn't serious. I just don't. I said to me and my other half both voted for Brexit, and I said to him the other night, we might as well just be resigned to the fact that we're not leaving. We're never going to leave.
Oh, so you've really given up completely?
I just don't believe. I voted Brexit Party in the European elections.
So
I'll always vote Brexit Party if you're always there.
Okay.
There's just nobody else to vote
So you
for.
haven't given up, Claire. You haven't given up. You're still going out to vote and still hold that opinion very strongly. So you really can't see Boris doing this, no?
No, I think he'll just sell us down the river like Hunt would, like Theresa May would have done. There's just nothing that's going to get through Parliament, that's the trouble.
No, I think, Claire, I honestly believe we will not get a genuine Brexit with the men and women we've currently got in Westminster. I think we do need to have an election to change things. Claire sounding very down in the dumps there from Ilkley, but she's not alone. Come on, somebody out there tell me that all these callers, all these texters and tweeters, YouTubers, Facebookers and others, someone out there tell me they're all wrong and that you still trust politicians at their word. It's very easy. You can get straight through 0345 6060 973. Julian is calling from Stapleton in Leicestershire. Good evening, Julian.
Good evening, Nigel. And it's not going to be me that's going to tell you what I think you were asking people to ring up and say.
I think I'm going to struggle to get anyone, Julian, really, but... So come on.
I'm so angry.
So come on, Julian, I say, as this has now turned into a sort of couch-style confessional, tell me, get it off your chest. What is it that's bugging you, Julian?
Nigel, I have been raging this afternoon since about 2 o'clock, since I heard what these clueless Remainer MPs are trying to do to derail Brexit. It just goes to show how little they really, really do know. Who takes off a negotiating tool like no deal? Who's going to do that? And they're just trying to tie Boris's hands. In relation to what you said about trust, I did trust Boris to deliver, believe it or not, and I'm actually a member of both the Brexit Party and the Conservative Party, and I voted for Boris. In fact, I posted my ballot paper today. Voting for Boris this morning, and at 2 o'clock this afternoon, I hear what they're trying to do to him, and I've got no confidence whatsoever.
Why did you, Judy? Can I ask you? You know, you've had that ballot paper sitting on top of the fridge for how long? 3 weeks?
3 weeks now, yeah.
Why did you vote so late?
Laziness. I've had it in the car, meaning to put it in the post box.
Laziness is a great answer.
From the minute I received it, and I've just not got a chance to put it in
There
the
I was looking for a profound political statement from you about how you were going to deeply analyse the campaign, and it was just sheer sloth, Julian. I'm very disappointed. Well, you voted for him. He's going to win, but you're beginning to doubt that he'll deliver, yeah?
Doubt because of him having his hands tied now by the looks of it. And I'm just so disillusioned. And I think the Brexit Party is the only way. I mean, it's going to go to a general election, isn't it, I would have thought. And then, we'll all vote for you.
Well, but the other thing, of course, is Boris knows that, doesn't he? Boris knows that if this goes beyond the 31st of October, the Conservative Party are in dire electoral trouble.
Yeah, and talking of trust, why did he do what he said last night about, not wanting to enter into any sort of agreement with yourself? I mean, that seems a bit of a clueless thing. So perhaps with hindsight, perhaps he's not as trustworthy as...
Julian, I tell you what, Boris, all through his career, has chopped and changed and flipped and flopped on policies, and a lot of things, I think, will change once he wins. Julian, I'll leave you to have a pleasant evening. Lee from Liverpool says, I think Boris is pretending to deliver Brexit to become Prime Minister. You cynically. He's telling Parliament what he might do and giving them enough time to block it. Then he can say, I tried. Very clever. But he doesn't fool me. So Lee from Liverpool knows his tricks. That's what she thinks. Chris is calling from Colchester. Hi, Chris.
Hiya. What really troubles me is if what Barnier is saying is true, then Theresa May has spent, 10, 11 billion on preparing for no deal when she always knew that wasn't going to happen.
I think they spent...
What are the consequences?
Yeah, they spent less than that. They spent less than that preparing for no deal. But I mean, so do you believe Barnier or do you believe Mrs May when she stood up and told us that no deal was better than a bad deal? Who do you believe, Chris?
Well, I don't see what Barnier's got to... what motive he would have for lying, because it kind of hurts the Remain position, if anything.
Well, I tell you what, Chris, it wasn't just Barnier. Here's the interesting thing. So Martin Selmayr, who is one of the top civil servants in the European Commission and has been Juncker's right-hand man, the beast as he's known, Selmayr has backed up what Barnier's said. So you've got two of the most senior people in Brussels saying she never even asked for this. And I agree with you. They're not doing this to help their position, are they?
Well, no. And so what she's been doing, she hasn't been negotiating against the EU. She's been colluding with them. She's actually been negotiating against our own parliament, using this no-deal facade as a blackmail to try and get her surrender treaty through. So it's disgusting, and, there should be some consequences for this.
Well, I tell you, there will be consequences, Chris, because I think what Barnier has said today is very, very telling, and this will be her legacy. She pretended to the country she was one thing, and she did quite another. And that's a pretty rotten legacy, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, and, that she'll go down probably as the worst Prime Minister ever, but... I don't trust Boris either. He was a Remainer up to a couple of months or so before the referendum, and like you say, he chops and changes, and he voted. He ended up back in the deal, even though he said it was a catastrophe. It's like he'll do anything or say anything just to get power. So.
I think a lot of people feel that. Well, Chris, I tell you what, we will not have long to find out. Chris, thank you very much indeed. And Chris thinks Theresa May is the worst Prime Minister in our lifetimes. I suspect she's the worst Prime Minister in history, but hey, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs have supported an amendment that now makes it more difficult for the next Prime Minister to suspend Parliament in order to push through a no-deal Brexit. A man's been found guilty of murdering his best friend's 13-year-old stepdaughter to stop her revealing his year-long abuse. A court in Cyprus has ordered 12 Israeli teenagers to be held in police custody for 8 days after allegations a British woman had been raped. LBC weather: showers easing to leave a largely dry night ahead for most, except for the far northwest, a low of 9 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Anne-Marie Walsh on the M25 clockwise. It's queuing for an hour and a half. That's from junction 22 at St Albans towards 26 Waltham Abbey after an accident in the Holmesdale Tunnel earlier. It's slow moving at the Blackwall Tunnel northbound. That's because of a breakdown inside the tunnel. And on the trains, Greater Anglia have delays of up to 40 minutes between Shenfield and Liverpool Street, with severe delays on TfL Rail because of an investigation, and delays of up to 40 minutes on South Eastern eastbound between St Pancras International and Stratford.
This is LBC.
Word in the woods is that three little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
Parents, you know your child. You know the way they learn is different to others. And Interhigh School knows this too. For 15 years, Interhigh has specialised in providing a fully interactive, tailored online school, supporting your child to achieve their best results from primary school age through to A-level. To discover more about Interhigh School, join their next online open evening on the 7th of August. Register at interhigh.co.uk.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £775 in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
Switch to BT Business Broadband today and get connected tomorrow. Our most reliable broadband connection yet is backed by our 4G network and now comes with a fixed price guarantee, which means your connection won't go down and our prices won't go up. Whatever your business, go online and search BT Business Broadband to find out more. BT, be there. Subject to availability. Fixed price guarantee for your contract duration. T's and C's apply.
At Honda, when we have one good idea, we keep going until we find another one. Like parking sensors and a rear parking camera for those tight spots, or advanced safety features as standard. Some ideas give you more Honda for your money, like a test drive event that saves you up to £1,000 off the list price. And some give you peace of mind, like 5 years complimentary servicing. So visit your local Honda dealer before 31st of August, where you'll find all these good ideas and many more besides. Terms and conditions apply.
It is quite an uncomfortable area, to be honest with anybody about. And then I wasn't honest about where my money was coming from or what I was doing.
I suppose we were kind of just spending without really questioning if we could afford it.
It was a whirlwind romance, I suppose.
It isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
This time next week, Boris Johnson is almost certain to be our Prime Minister, and he is going to deliver Brexit. By the 31st of October, come hell or high water, he's perfectly happy to do it with no deal, if that is what is necessary. And so far, I can't find a single one of you to tell me that you absolutely believe him when he says that. And maybe given what Mrs May was spouting, telling us no deal's better than a bad deal, but not even trying with Monsieur Barnier to achieve it, maybe you don't believe anybody evermore. But if there's somebody out there, come on, someone tell me Boris is going to do it. Someone tell me Boris is going to be a superhero. 0345 6060 973. Andrew from Milton Keynes is furious about Parliament today. My 5-year-old business is on its knees due to uncertainty. I've had to lose 4 of my 5 staff this year Business is dead, frightened to commit to buying. And Andrew, that argument that the longer this goes on, actually the worse it is for investment, the worse it is for confidence, I think has some genuine traction. Luke in Loughborough says, politicians lie, it's what they do. I won't believe any of them until a meaningful Brexit is delivered. Shirley says, I'm hoping the staunch Brexiteers are still pulling the strings. But why did Raab and Boris start talking about proroguing? Why not just do it? Well, I think, Shell, actually, if you're about to become Prime Minister, you really ought to be fairly reasonably open about the path you intend to take. Adam is calling from Ealing. Adam, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. So, come on, Mrs May made promises. She never even attempted to carry them through. Can we now believe Boris?
Mrs. May is disgusting. I don't even want to talk about her.
Right. Well, I tell you what, then we won't. Okay. So let's
exactly. She's a disgusting woman. I don't. Well, I don't know what to say about her.
Well. She's failed. Let's leave it at that. So what about Boris, Adam? Will Boris deliver?
Yeah, for three factors, Nigel.
He will.
You can. Yeah, I believe him.
I've got one at last. Right.
Yeah, at last. You can tell a person by the company they keep. If you look at the guys that Boris is keeping, they are not the Amber Roads or the Alistair Bott that did the crazy thing today. Is the IDS, Jan Duncan Smith, Mark Francois, Jacob Brixmock. That's number one. Number two, I have read so many of Boris's articles. He is a true believer and he campaigned assiduously for vote leave. That's number two. And number three, if you look, it's pure survival. If Boris doesn't deliver, you will be number 10. Nigel Farage and his bunch of Brexit guys will be running the country. Even if he doesn't believe it, it's a pure matter of survival. And in the animal jungle, survival instinct kicks in. And fourthly, it doesn't even really have to do many things, no matter the protestation, gesticulation of the crazy Romania. They don't really need to do much other than ramp up NOJO preparation, because the law as it stands is that we exit on October 31st.
Yeah.
So a strong-willed, determined executive, which Mrs. May was not, will deliver it, really.
Well, do you know what, Adam? I think you've made three very interesting points. In reverse order, you're quite right. You know, we saw the Conservative Party, albeit in a European election, get less than 10% of the vote. If they don't deliver on the 31st of October, their funding will dry up, confidence in them.
It's even dried up already.
Well, it has to a very large extent. No, you're right. So, yeah, this idea that the survival instinct's important, no, I get that. You're making a good point. As for him being a believer, he was very late to the party, but he's now utterly committed to it. But it's the first point, Adam, and I'm going to say this to you. You know, Amber Rudd has now been crawling back to him. We've even had Michael Gove, albeit he was a Brexiteer, but suddenly saying Boris would be a good Prime Minister. Little bit different to the stab in the back he got a couple of years ago in for Boris. I think, Adam, we will judge what you've just said to me within 72 hours of Boris becoming Prime Minister, because we will see who he picks as Brexit Secretary. We'll see who he picks as Chancellor, as Attorney General. And if he picks a team of people who are committed to delivering Brexit, then, Adam, you may well be right. But I think we need to wait and see, don't we?
You are very true, Mr. Nigel. I've learned not to disagree with you before. Several months ago, you were saying we should not trust Mrs. May. I thought you were wrong. How can you not even give her the space? But with benefit of hindsight, you were right. But I will say this to you, Nigel. If Boris goes full to ELG cabinet, it will be very difficult for him. Everything rises on leadership. Your leadership for Brexit Party amounted to probably 75% of their success. Even if he has the 5-4, the crazy Romania and Barod in his cabinet, if as chief executive, if he is strong-willed and determined, no matter their crazy maneuverings, will still get out. So even if he puts the little Ambarod there for stability and all that, please let's give him the space or the allowance.
Adam, I tell you what, Adam, yeah, I do remember the conversation we had about Mrs. May, and I was, for a long time, I felt very lonely on this show, criticising Mrs. May, getting a lot of abuse for it. When it comes to Boris, I've really got my severe doubts, but I absolutely hope that the logic, Adam, of the arguments you put tonight prevails. My fear is that the parliamentary numbers won't allow it. Adam, thank you. Do call me again. Liz in Norfolk says, I think Boris will get us out. He has seen and heard what Mrs May has done, and he will achieve it. Desiree in Sheffield says, I'm a passionate Remainer. However, I respect democracy. If Boris can be shown up by a kipper, then it tells you everything you need to know about the legitimacy of his knowledge. And the argument here is that Boris said, look, this kipper in this wrapping, because of ridiculous EU rules, it has to have an ice block pack next to it, and it would appear that may well not be true. But hey, facts. Boris, who cares? He never does. Sandra is a new caller from Liskeard in Cornwall. Sandra, good evening.
Oh, good evening, Nigel. Yes, I just want to be very quick because I know you're short of time. But there's an old saying, set a thief to catch a thief.
Yes.
Not that I'm saying anybody in Parliament is a thief.
Right.
But I do feel that Boris knows the workings and the machinations of all these rather sort of unsavoury characters in Parliament, and I think he's the best one from that point of view to deal with all their sort of plots and plans and everything like that.
Well, Sandra, I completely understand what you say, but ultimately, if he's not able to prorogue Parliament, you know, however devious or clever he may be, however much he may understand parliamentary shenanigans, he can't change the arithmetic, Sandra, can he?
I don't know. There must be ways around this. I mean, people can dig up all these old precedents in the law. I don't know. I wouldn't like to say.
Do you, in your heart, Sandra, you think Boris will succeed with this, yeah?
I think there's a chance he will do, yes.
Well, Sandra, all I can say to you is I absolutely hope that you are right. I really do. Sandra, thank you. Look, and I really mean it. I genuinely, if he wins next week, I want him to deliver Brexit on the 31st of October. But there's no way any concession at all can ever be gotten from Brussels unless they really do think you are walking out the door on that day. Clearly, Mrs May did not tell the truth to the British public. She very clearly deceived the electorate with her 2017 manifesto and many millions who voted for Brexit. Sorry to say, I believe Monsieur Barnier more than I believe the British government, which is quite something for me to say. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show. I'll be back next week. Coming up at 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But right now, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you. Coming up at 8, we're going to spend an hour with Rod Liddell, so stand by your beds for that one. He has written a book called The Great Betrayal, The True Story of Brexit. I'm about halfway through it. It is quite something, as you can imagine. I suspect Nigel would agree with most of it. I agree with most of it. And he's one of the most controversial people in Britain, in a way. He's a great polemicist, and he really does divide public opinion. People accuse him of being racist. If he was racist, I doubt whether he'd have a column in the Sunday Times, The Sun, and be assistant editor of The Spectator. At 9, we're going to be talking about young drivers. The government wants to ban them driving